Well, hello everybody on this, our March equinox show. Welcome. I am Amber Chamberlain. This is also Satara Jules Lightbringer, and we are esoterics today. We thought about what would be really helpful right about now for our highly esoteric and quantumly expanded tribe, and we thought the topic of judgment and what that's like energetically, how judgment occurs, what happens energetically when we are engaged in judgment behavior. We thought that should be our topic for this very show. But before we introduce the topic any further and get into it, Esoterics Today is the show where you can listen to two pretty expanded human beings who are pretty versed in both ancient and modern esoterica, and all that includes. And this is the place where we really try to talk about these topics in a practical format, in a way that you can take something from here and move it out into your regular 3D lifestyle. Because Satara and I know that holding these highly esoteric quantum spiritual constructs and concepts, bringing them into our daily lives is really what's necessary as we are transfiguring from that 3D motif through the fourth to the fifth and beyond. So with that said, Satara, why are we talking about judgment to this particular community today? What's important about that?
I think it's important to just address it because there's so much of it seems to go on, and it's really noticeable within the spiritual community because it is such a diverse spectrum that we're all within, with our whole different levels of belief systems within it, that it is so easy for people to think that they have the ultimate knowledge and other people don't, basically. So you can get an awful lot of ego seems to come in to different subjects with people that just seem to be playing this one-upmanship game. Now, I find it testing at times when I am watching and observing this with people, because it just shows on so many levels that the inner work has yet to be completed. Now, don't get me wrong, I think we can all do inner work forever.
I was going to say, is it ever completed?
But there isn't.
Another head cold, clearing yet another layer of emotional, probably grief. I mean, can we be like this forever?
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, you get to a certain sort of level of stuff that you're at least able to look at everything and think, yeah, it's perfect. Everything's perfect. Everybody is where they need to be because that's their individual journey. And their individual journey has got nothing really to do with me. It's a perfect example of like leaving it alone, because you just think we've all gone through certain hurdles to get to where we are now. So who is anybody really to go, hold on a minute, you're going through the wrong door there. Yeah, you just think, no, you carry on through that door. That door's got your name on it clearly because you want to go in. That's perfect. Just because you're doing something that I've done and I regretted perhaps thinking, oh, why did I go down that rabbit hole?
Right.
Doesn't mean it's a wrong thing to do, because the learning from it is huge. It's infinite.
And Satara, one of the constructs of the law of one is that if I'm bringing my awareness of your experience into my holographic existence, into my matrix, you're actually me, and I am learning from watching that aspect of myself in you.
Yep.
And really, if I am judging or somehow eschewing what you're doing or having anything other than love or respect or honor or forgiveness or compassion, I'm really hurtful to myself.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely, totally.
I'm hurting me.
That's the deeper level. by not being able to look at someone and think, well, I can see where you're going. That's absolutely great. Carry on going, have a ball. Yeah. You.
Or even if if I forget, and I do it constantly in my 3D transfiguring life, and I say it like that, listeners and viewers, for a reason. Yeah. I'm acutely aware that I am an embodied soul in a third dimensional form at a highly transfiguring time on planet Earth / Terra / Gaia. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I will explore the pain of judging another, occasionally catch myself. I like to think that where I am now is in discernment, because I do think there's a discussion to have between Satara, what is discernment and what is judgment? Because some people will say, but there are things people do we're not going to like, or some aspect that we're going to have a negative sensation around.
Yeah. But isn't that the whole point? We're here to trigger each other, so we do have that. So that we do have the knee-jerk reaction and go, oh, God, I've just reacted to that. Okay, why am I reacting to it? What aspect of that has triggered me in this way? And that is the best learning we can ever have, because we can go off with that and just ponder that for days, weeks, months, whatever it's going to take to work through that, to be able to go, right, I see where that got me. I see where that hit me in my funny bone. Great, I've worked with it. I understand it. I've expanded it. I'm good.
Now, you're describing, and I'm describing, the human being who has ultimate self-responsible thinking, perceiving, mission. In other words, a part of the sovereign life. And I really understand 2019 to be planetarily for humans the rise of the motif of sovereignty, which I think is the resonance on that. If I could get my little, off-planet measuring tool out.
Yeah.
Or if I were listening to harmonics, put it in wavelength and sound or color, it's exquisitely beautiful, the word sovereign. But yes, one of the fundamentals to sovereignty is ultimate self-responsibility. I take responsibility for that experience.
Yeah, totally.
And that judgment.
Yeah.
That's what you're describing.
Very much so. And doing it I'm trying, you know what I'm like, I try and do it in a 3D way for people to get the 3D aspect of it, because although I appreciate that we're bouncing in and between the multi-dimensions all the time,
right,
predominantly having to be 3D, 4D here. So therefore, how do we feel emotionally? Because we have a whole different range of emotions down here than we have in any other reality.
As I hear often that there is more contrast. One of the things that I hear from a star being aspect and the curiosity of being embodied in the third dimensional form, Satara, is how much contrast there is.
Yes. Because if you think that when we're embodying 6th dimension and above, I'm just going to ballpark it rather than go through the different dimensions and how we are within those, we can look at another being in whatever form that is, and we can read it. We can see everything about it. We can look directly through to the soul, and we can see if there's any agenda, what's going on, where anything is coming from, without actually having to communicate with each other. That open and expanded, that there's no need for discussion. Here has been deliberately closed, regardless of our human expansion, so that we have to communicate and we have to learn that what is coming out necessarily of someone's mouth and what is going on internally can be totally different. My one wonderful guide calls it lip service here, and they think it's hilarious.
It is hilarious.
Yeah.
I know when I'm giving lip service, and I know when I'm getting it.
Yeah, exactly. And we do. And really that's because we're embodying part of what we've embodied before with reading people. We're reading the energy. But a lot of people still on the journey haven't got to that level. So
Right.
you can't tell if what's coming out of someone's mouth or writing or whatever is total bullshit or whether it is perfection in motion.
Because that ring, that bell of clarity that
Yeah,
rings, that you learn to listen for when it's truth with a capital T.
very much so. But all of it's still perfect because you just think, well, yeah, this is what we're here for.
That's the level of acceptance that also comes with self-responsibility and the sovereign nature.
Yeah.
That
And just knowing that we're all one, so therefore we need to love and respect each other. Doesn't matter what we're doing.
But now I want to turn the subject a little bit because I have been kind of dying to talk about this with you a bit around judgment. It certainly has a huge element of judgment. Some
Mm-hmm.
years ago, as I was hit through the 2012, and then my Lord, I would say I went galactic in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And listeners and viewers, my sister Satara has been galactic since she came to the planet, never wasn't. That's an entirely different journey.
Oh, yeah.
And what we'll get into in future shows, I think, Satara. So it was in that time that I went increasingly online. I went increasingly into the hinter world of of the Facebook closed group environment. And
Yeah.
what I saw there, not only was I getting validation and resonance and finding tribe and collective in a loose way, to what had happened to me with going galactic and what that means. That felt good and right, but my word, not only did I hit all those narratives that we can, ways of discussing energetics
Mm-hmm.
that we can do in esoterics, but I saw an enormous amount of 3D human judgment being overlaid. Like, okay, that narrative is bad. That narrative is right. That one is wrong. Oh, don't go there. Let's not mention Metatron, Satara. And like your
Yeah.
and like your conversation with me before the show, and you're talking about a friend who said, okay, if it's not the Yeshua way, it's no way. I mean,
Yeah.
holy cow! I
Yeah.
was singed daily in my empaths, highly sensitive person. I was just reverberating with all that intense
Yeah.
judgment.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting, isn't it? And you still see it in so different ways it plays out. There seems to be a cult at the moment that people are like linking into, oh, I'm an indigo. It's like, yeah, you are, but you're also every other color and every other vibration within the indigo. But yeah, there seems to be this habit that, and I don't see it anywhere other than this planet, of creating a box for yourself, putting yourself in it, closing the lid, and experiencing just that part of it.
But sweetheart, here's what I want to say about that, because I'm so glad
Hmm.
you brought it up, like the indigo story,
That does my head in.
uh, or the blue ray story, or because these are all beautiful, everybody listening, beautiful, beautiful, yes, narrative
Yeah,
that
totally.
express the one, the
Yeah,
that go at it. The
yeah,
key here that really you're getting at, Satara, is you're asking, as a consciousness teacher and healer and so forth, you're asking people stay open.
yeah, totally.
But here's and be accepting of all the other narratives and
Yeah,
not be hierarchizing up, that's better, that's worse. That's very 3D good and bad human behavior, like judgment is. But what I think you're really saying, I think that is what you're saying. And I think that what I want to help people understand about what you're saying is, I think people do that, Satara, when they psychologically, as a 3D human nervous system structure, and particularly one that involves a beautiful, powerful ego. It's important to have ego. And that's another show we should do about the important role that the ego plays in the
yeah,
human
totally.
psyche in a three-dimensional human form daily life. If I
Yeah,
saw
totally.
one more person saying, oh, you got to get rid of the ego, I'm thinking, you people don't understand. We have 3D bodies and forms. We came into this structure. We have to work within the limitations of it. We cannot eschew the nervous system and the brain and the whole format that we've been beautifully, miraculously imbued with. It's what's here in the 3D. I think what happens to people, Satara, is first they judge themselves. This is as far as I'm going to go. I'm a Blu-ray. I'm an indigo. All the rest of that stuff is for shit. Okay, or I have to do it the way through Yeshua, or I have to do it through the way of ancient Egyptian viewpoints, or I have to do it. I think it's almost these particular souls grasp onto it because they get it that way. They're holding it and integrating that story in a way that's evolving them via the ascension story. Their subatomic particles are on that ascension move, okay? But then they go about doing something very 3D human. They then go over there and point a finger and judge the next person. We were talking about Essenes. You and I were talking about, we could talk about it from a Kabbalistic standpoint. We could talk about it from a Metatron's Cube standpoint. I can tell you now, this is a big subject for me. You can tell I'm very animated about judgment in our tribe.
Totally. Yeah, it fries me.
It fries me. It makes me crazy because I'm like, people, let's stop this craziness.
Yeah, just step back, see the perfection, move on.
Yeah. And now what I'm going to say about the perfection, now you're talking to me about, when you say perfection, you're talking as someone who exquisitely, that word really comes up for me a lot, understands how miraculous and perfect this dimension truly is.
Yeah, no mistakes ever. It's brilliant.
We'll talk about that.
Programming
to really understand this.
It's incredible. It's just the way it's been programmed is absolutely incredible. You think that every dimension exists within the realm of Earth, and it is purely down to our choice in a way where we want to be within that. So do we want to be looking at all the perceived devastation and everything that's going on, or do we want to be tripping around the light cities?
While also cooking your meal, going to work and
vacuuming,
You can do both, people. You can't just trip the light out there. Come with us, we'll take you. But by golly, somebody's got to be a breadwinner. Somebody's got to be clothing the children. Somebody needs to be going to school. This is what it's called.
The juggling, the total juggle. But you know what I mean? Just being able to perceive what we want to perceive, what we focus on is what we help to manifest. So if we're focusing on things that come from lower energy, fear, etc., that is what we start to embody. Whereas if we do the whole love rather than fear routine, which is my favorite little thing that I bring up every so often, I'm like, what are we today, love or fear? Yeah. As soon as we see that love with that ripple out around us.
And isn't that what judgment is? Isn't judgment just another tributary? Like if we have the ocean that is fear, is not judgment a stream that feeds fear?
That feeds, totally. Absolutely, totally.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like, when you're talking to people and you're showing that love in small ways, I'm going to share something in a second about that from yesterday. But when we're showing it, it's brought back to us tenfold at times.
That's the karmic patterning that is the promise of soul life, of soul existence. It's all, it's in physics, Satara.
Yeah.
For every action, there's an equal reaction.
Totally. So, I will share. Last night, I was at a meeting. And this meeting has got 5 big round tables sat in like a line.
Was this in the third dimension? I must ask you, was this in 3D?
Yeah. Third dimension meeting. So I always sit in the middle table. Always. You know what I'm like about balance? So there's 5 tables. I'm in table 3, whichever end you look at it. Yeah, I'm in the middle. So they're all doing good that way. They're chatting away. You can hear giggling. You can hear joy. It's going well. That end is like a morgue. Right? So I was like, okay. So I rub my hands together. I don't say a word at this point. Just rub my hands together and I slowly get a nice chi ball going. And I went, Sue, to one of the ladies down right at the very bottom end of the table. And I just threw this chi ball at her, which was just love. And she caught it, not knowing what she was doing particularly. And, like, and I was like, I'm throwing you some love. Oh, she goes, she blows kisses. And then they start throwing each other love. And slowly the room erupts. It's going here, it's going there, it's going every possible direction.
I love this.
Which is why I sit in the middle.
Yeah.
Because I do random stuff like that. Okay, I don't do it every time, but occasionally you just think, right, we need to get this going in here and I'll start something.
Okay, listeners and viewers, Sitara just gave you a beautiful practical demonstration. Everyone who listens to this body of work and is attracted to it and to this show is going to be someone who is incredibly capable of this kind of, yes, miracle. This humans might like to call this the 6th stage of initiation, Sitara, because people like to look at stages of initiation. Everybody who comes here is somewhere around that 5th and 6th stage. They correspond also to the dimensions, frankly. But what Sitara described as a practical 3D transfiguring skill is changing the frequency and the resonance of the room.
Yeah.
I love practical
and
of that.
You know, there's around about 30 odd people at the meeting. It's not huge, but it can pocket up. It's like, okay. And I just sit there and I just read the energy and I'm like, okay, right, what am I going to do?
That's called, and for you all know this already. This is what is called light work.
Yeah, totally.
And frankly, it's also what is grid work, because what Sitara you did, as I'm interpreting this for our listeners and viewers, what that is grid work is each of those people, just as ourselves, are on the light grid of this planet, our beloved Mother Gaia. She is our home. She is our heartbeat, okay? And what you're doing for her, when you do something small like Sitara just described, is you are you're emanating that light out to these other people who have their place on the grid. They're going to go home from the meeting into their homes. Right beneath their star chakra, but underneath their feet is their nodal point. Do not ever think that every soul in so many ways has ascended mastery. You wouldn't have come for this time. And what Sitara is describing is how we light work among one another. Yeah.
Without the people necessarily even realizing but we erupted the room.
I love that.
In there was incredible. And it was just beautiful to be a part of and just literally watch people light up.
Now here's my next question about that. Instead of keeping it in the judgment theme, instead of you sitting in your humanity, because you're a human being too, instead of sitting in your humanity and judging that side of the room as a bunch of losers or not contributing, or pulling down pulling down the energy of the room and just sitting there kind of complaining to yourself about that, you did something about it. You took sovereign responsibility for it. Yeah. You were playful and joyful doing it. You tossed it to someone who playfully, joyfully caught it, and then ignited like a fire. And guess what, listeners and viewers? What do you think went on in those ancient Egyptian pyramids? How do you think telepathy, light, how do you think energy worked back in those positions in those ancient settings? And when we were Atlantis, she just gave a big clue, people, as to how an energy generator happens.
Yeah.
Yes? How you put fire in the hole.
Yeah.
For you people who like it like that and can understand what I'm talking about, that's a beautiful example of firing up the engine.
Yeah. That was just me last night. I just
that was just you at a
I
meeting.
was just last night thinking, okay, let's get this room booming.
And then, okay, now I want to bring another 3D because we're very practical in these very esoteric places. So, because we're taking care of 3D humans. In our client work, we're taking care of people that look and feel a lot like us who still got to do the laundry. My laundry room is right there. I got a load going now. Who's got to go pick up her son at 3 o'clock from Kiss and Ride. Okay, because we're having human lives, and we are dedicated here, Satara and I, to making sure that you guys have a practical approach to this work and stay grounded. So Satara, in that meeting and its subject and agenda for the day, obviously you're in something where something needs to get done, something helpful, something for a community, something for work, something whatever. How do you think, what did you see happen in terms of how the agenda got met or exceeded or something got done? What was the result in that meeting?
Well, the meeting I go to on a Wednesday is Weight Watchers.
Okay.
So energy can be a bit pocketed in there depending on it. If someone's lost weight, gained weight, stayed the same, done whatever they've done that isn't what they wanted to do. So you can see people go to the scales quite okay and come back all deflated. Yeah. So there's a few of us that will start something going in there in different ways, because at the end of the day, we're there for a purpose, and that purpose isn't to be downhearted about it. Whatever has happened is a win, because isn't the win just actually attending the meeting?
Being registered.
Yeah, and being able to go, okay, this is where I'm getting my mindset at, and my body is slowly following it.
Right.
Therefore, it's a win to be there. And the process.
I love that. And so really what you're saying is, by that bit of light work that you just brought in to your third dimensional experience of being a member of the Weight Watchers Forum, which frankly on our planet in industrialized nations, our human bodies have gone through a lot.
Yeah.
And being that our bodies have gone through a lot, especially in these industrialized environments, what with petrochemicals and the changes of the nutrition in our foods, I could go on and on relative to what feeds the false matrix on this planet.
Oh, yes.
That's being corrected. A lot of our human bodies are suffering. And so a lot of us go to pick up on some three-dimensional tools, 3D Weight Watchers and many other weight loss environments, because we need that community, that connection, that accountability. What you're saying is, in that part of your 3D human, you blended your other selves in a beautiful, practical way to serve.
Yeah, totally, because we're not there to be sad about it. We're here to, to address it, to just have fun, and actually, we're quietly building a community there.
Absolutely.
And that is beautiful, because everybody that walks through that for the first time looks like they're doing the walk of shame.
I know. And you want to talk about a sticky emotion?
No.
It is an MFer, because it will stick dark and tangled. I write about that.
Yeah. And if anybody's kind of in there doing the walk of shame, I make a point of going, hello, how are you? Yeah. And I will just, spend, even if it's just 5 minutes, just to say hello, so that they know that they are just accepted, that they're just part of the whole group, rather than feeling them and us syndrome.
That's the bifurcated, the good and the bad. And I want to take a minute to go back to that theme about the what I would call the false matrix.
Yeah.
The more false structure around the planet that has been around the planet for thousands of years.
Yeah, millennia. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The reason I bring that up, and I mentioned this to you before we started the conversation, I want to talk about the ways in which the behaviors and thoughts and emotions, let's say judgment,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a lower vibratory experience. If I were to measure that with my little magical tool, and as a matter of fact, Harvard and Stanford and the types here in the US, as well as other institutions around the world, can measure vibratory resonances of all kinds of things.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about how we feed, how we drain our life force when we participate without self-responsibility in the way of judgment. So Tara, give me your story of how if we talked freely about that, which we're going to do right now, what
Mm-hmm.
you would like this tribe, this collective who listens to understand about how we feed that with this sort of thing.
I think it would be useful to give a bit of a visual. Um, the way I view things when I tune in, I see everything as holographs. So therefore, I see overlays and grids for everything.
Yeah.
For everything.
Yeah.
There's no exception, which is why I tend to drive not doing that these days. But that's another story. So if you just imagine that we're going to focus on two grids, and I'm going to just call them positive and negative grids. I'm going to call the positive grid every time we feel joy, happiness, love, whenever we're in the zone and we're like, oh, wow, look at me, don't I feel amazing today? Whenever we've got that zing going on and that spring in our step, we are in that grid. There's no two ways about it. We are in there.
Yeah.
Every time we think, oh, damn, I can't get those jeans on, they're too tight. Every time we think I've just burnt that pizza. But yeah, we're human. We do these things. We think, oh, that's going to take 10 minutes. We wander off. We get distracted. 15 minutes later, we wonder why the smoke alarm's gone off. We go, oh, yeah, next pizza, always buy them in twos. So, yeah, every time we're having anything glitchy, let alone if we're heartbroken about something, let alone if something's just crumbled in what we see as our world, we then feed that dark matrix. So the dark matrix basically sucks as much energy out of us as we're willing to give it, because actually we're going, here, it's on a plate for you, take it, when we're in those energies. One of the hardest things that we can do as a human is when, shall we say, the shit is really hitting the fan on all levels, is to not realize that that's doing that for a perfect reason. The hardest job we have is to put that on it and be able to go, bless you, be able to go, okay, that's all crumbled behind me. And I was good with that, but it's obviously crumbled behind me because something's better is on its way.
So it's a mindset shift.
It's that whole mind spin that takes time to do and go, okay, I thought that was good, but obviously it wasn't as good as it can be. Rather than being totally devastated that something or someone or whatever it is has now gone.
I think what you are getting at as I'm listening to you, you are really saying, mind your thoughts.
Totally.
Mind your emotions.
Because we have the choice of what we feed and what we don't feed. When we feed the light grid that I'm terming, and I call it many, many things, but just to simplify it, that works as a figure eight and feeds us back.
Yeah.
Lovely, loops back in, fantastic. So it just allows us to just experience it back and keep that vibe going. But so does the dark one. And we feed that dark and we give, and it just gives us more miserableness. So we give more and we get in this complete dejected loop until we're that low on the floor that the only way is up.
Okay, now I want to talk about service to others' souls and service to self paradigm. That paradigm that a lot of our listeners and viewers are going to have bumped into or are fully.
Totally.
So
Nine
what
times.
happens, because you're
Sorry.
calling it dark versus light, and we
Yeah.
know light is, and I want to make really clear to everybody listening, we're using this metaphoric language and metaphoric presentation because that's what we're left with as human beings in human language, and we're talking to each other not in light language. If Satara and I were talking about this in light language, as a matter of fact, Satara, let's have a quick moment on that. So tuki esini dotoma esikni la kutun es tin kole entidi esito an.
Iakanashtihi hiakanala. Uhiatistehe utanishtiacha.
Okay, what just happened between Satara and I, we used an incredibly efficient discussion between us demonstrating everything we just took the last 15 minutes to say or more.
Yeah.
It's what we were talking about there is we're exactly understanding the power that you have as an individual soul to bring into yourself. It's an incredibly powerful dynamic to practice holding your thoughts, holding your emotions very close and knowing them and gardening them and being sure moment to moment. And it takes practice. In a 3D form, this is what's so important about what's hitting the planet now. We are the early bringers of the unity consciousness format to the planet. And it's us who are having to remember and then practice what we remember.
Yeah, totally. Because we, with the best will in the world, we might know it, but we can still slip so far off it at times.
If I burn my pizza, I'm like, damn it.
Yeah. It's like, I was going to have pizza. Okay, the birds are having the pizza. What am I doing?
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm famous for, I have, as a highly sensitive person, and my nervous system is always like supercharged. I can have reactivity behaviorally that is life force draining. My adrenaline response, let's talk physiologically, can fire in a way that drains life force. Where do you think that life force goes that is draining away from my holographic reality?
Yeah, exactly. It's just feeding the dark, the perceived dark, lower energy.
And that's a great way, dark or lower. Remember, everything is light.
Yeah, of course.
Talk about service to self and service to self souls and service to other souls. We are all of them. We've been all of it more heavily one way or another, depending on our lifetimes.
Yeah.
Those of us coming to these conversations are service to other souls, and we know it. But we can't have judgment about service to self paradigm because we are them too.
Yeah, totally.
Totally.
And that brings me back to just being able to step back and seeing the perfection in everything. And seeing that everything has its place, however people perceive it as good, bad, or ugly. Okay. It has its place.
Now, Satara, you brought up another good point. It's reminding me, we've had a lot of self-judgment as well as and judgment from others, which is really self-judgment, about sounding Pollyanna. Oh, love and light, light and love and light, light and love. The love and light tribe. Everything is perfect. Everything is beautiful. Everything is light, love and light. We've had a lot of judgment, self-judgment and judgment from others, which is self-judgment. And so when you can say everything is perfect, it falls a little into that. What will sound to the uncareful listener, you're actually teaching a motif.
I'm not teaching fluffy. I'm not doing fluffy when I say this by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just aware that everything here has its purpose. Whether that is to trigger the hell out of somebody, that's great. Whether it's not, that's great. There will be somebody that will need to react to a certain programming box here. So therefore, it's here.
And can we accept people Satara, you and I do. And I fall off it every now and again in my week or days. Okay. But I overall accept it, or I wouldn't be in this conversation doing this today. Can't we accept that each soul pattern has its own blueprint and template in this three-dimensional environment? Can
Yeah.
we accept
We are individuals here by design.
by design? This is a individualized, fractalized blueprint template that I call me.
Yeah, totally.
Can we accept that? Because when we do accept that as a sovereignty condition, I keep weaving that in,
Yeah.
then we can watch others, we can view others, but of course they are ourselves, and we can know that it is perfect. As Satara is using the word perfect, because you're saying perfect design, brilliant, beautiful design.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely, totally. As you know, I do the whole holographic thing.
Do too.
Humans, there is a certain holographic overlay to be human. There's a certain avatar, shall we say?
Yes, you're looking at it.
But totally. Here's my avatar. But as we kind of go deeper through the avatar, no set of motherboards and subsidiary circuits are the same. No two people will have the same. They'll have the one structure, and then after that, it can be all sorts of interesting bits and pieces that can be within, because that is what that aspect of us has come in to learn about. And basically, we want to come in and learn about everything, which is why all of us are doing something different. No two people, even if they talk the same talk and look to walk the same walk, will be identical. There will be differences.
It's not even possible.
Lovely.
And because once you guys go a little further in your learning, what you're doing about the structures, and I think this is why geometry is helpful. This is why I think understanding things about quantum physics and quantum mechanics, molecular science and atomic sciences. I think that this is where that spirit science piece comes in really helpful for your spiritual artist. Mm-hmm. Because it gives you a place to hang. Well, what are we talking about when we say all is perfect? What are we talking about with this when we say evolution of the planetary energies, or our human human kingdom? When you begin to know the phylum of when you begin to understand the declination of subatomic existence, that's been really helpful for me. I think, Satara, because you came onto the planet, you didn't forget much, whereas I forgot most of it and then woke to it at these later triggers. I was awakened kid, but not to the star family level stuff that I am now, the galactic part. And it was so helpful for me to have sort of a spirit science understanding about this is Earth school, because that's what you were just describing.
Yeah, totally.
And because we are ascending through the kingdoms, so to speak, when we talk about it from science standpoint, we've been the mineral, we've been the plant life, you don't get in this form, in my understanding, you do not get in this embodied form to the human kingdom unless you've been all of this, including the animal kingdom.
Yeah, totally. We've been everything, everywhere, before we get to be offered the golden ticket for what is termed the graduation realm.
And my friends, here we are having conversations that then are pushing into what would be considered an enlightened realm of angelics and ascended mastery. Then we see more about when Satara, you were talking about what it would be to be our sixth dimensional being selves and beyond. you then can conceptualize that as a human being. I think using architecture like that helps us as humans have these conversations.
Very much so. I remember as a child being told to remember the ladder, and that I would know it would be called Jacob's ladder